this morning with little Rocky.
Yeah.
If you're watching, you can see him on the monitor. He's getting a little head rub.
Yes.
A little self massage going on here from me.
Rocky's releasing some tension.
He's so tense. I was just saying to Lou that this lovely little 5-year-old Maltese looks like he's just always sleeping. If we could all just be so, relaxed.
He's not a relaxed dog though.
He kind of is.
Is he?
He's very chill. Unless he sees people for like a hot second, then he's a wild man. But then he goes right back to sleeping.
Oh, good.
Yes. No,
I'd take that.
Yeah. No, he's
other than my Aussie, who's.
Oh no, he's nothing.
DEFCON 5.
No.
24 hours a day.
No, he's not like that at all. He's very chill. He's very chill, which is why people just love him because he's so easygoing.
He's tiny.
He has moments.
He's tiny.
Mm-hmm. He's like 4 and change.
All your cats are bigger.
Except, Echo's like a pound heavier. Yes. Ugh, he's sitting on me. Okay, there we go. Okay. He just had a good car ride. We had a little fun car ride in the heat. The 90 degrees it's out.
Yeah, I know, right? No complaining.
No, I'm not complaining. I'll take this over snow and cold any day. So anyway, welcome to this week. We missed last week. We had some minor technical difficulties. Really not minor. The studio's essentially all the equipment blew up. And so I waited for a while to start, but Lou was, I snuck out. I just slid out the door and was like, see you next week, Lou. So for people that
the main computer died.
Yep.
So.
Everything died.
I got the second show off.
Oh, you did? Oh, thanks. That's nice. That's great.
I had time.
Oh, I thought you didn't get any shows off that day.
We kind of limped it off too.
Oh, okay. See, that's what I thought. Because I
wasn't 100%.
My understanding was
we got
there was no shows really going on that day. But they were. So anyway.
Your show wasn't.
All right. Thank you. Well, thanks.
Well, the computer died like 5 minutes before he was supposed to go on.
I understand that. Yeah. I'm back and people were waiting for my next part in what we were talking about because we were resetting the mindset on relationship communication and understanding protecting yourself or really understanding reality and the difference between the communication styles. I believe that's where I left off. Is that not where I left off?
I believe that's where you left off.
I do. So I'm doing like a little mini recap because, 2 weeks goes by and all of a sudden it feels like months because people are like, where are we in the show? Right. So we're still in rise. We're rising, but we're resetting the mindset to get out of like protect yourself mode in communication to understand your reality so that your perception is right and it's more healthy in the communication pattern. So I'll recap this. Did you want to talk about anything, by the way, Lou? I'm just like jumping right in because we're running behind. We missed the show. I'm like, run into it.
No.
Okay, good. Want to talk about the dog, the cats, anything, politics? No, that's good.
No.
Okay, that's what I thought. Okay, so a lot of unhealthy communication, like I said 2 weeks ago, comes from automatic reactions, not responses, right? So if we can just stay in response mode, that would be great. But people find it hard because most of our default, as we talked about, is always programmed growing up into react emotionally, right? So it's very rare that you get raised in an environment, either in school and sports and whatever, because what is it? It's always like react, right? You get emotional, react. So you actually have a better outcome in sports and school and family and relationships and everything if you do more responsive reactions, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Right. So if we don't assume so I'll put the unhealthy ones first. If we don't assume intent, right? We're not assuming something. We're not making a presumption about what someone means. If we're not defending things too quickly, if we're not needing to be right, how I talk about the right fight, if we're not avoiding discomfort, if we're not always sitting in expectation of rejection, or we're over-explaining or shutting down, if we can keep those in mind as the common patterns that happen in unhealthy communication and use those as examples of, okay, where do I fall into those? If not all of them, because some people fall into all of those, right? Because they kind of go hand in hand, all of them. Then we can go to a healthier mindset, which would be essentially the opposite of all those things. And you're replacing those things with a flip or a change in generation of different perspective. Here goes my voice. What happens in here?
I don't know.
This room, I swear, it's like haunted.
Probably the soundproofing, probably.
So instead of like saying something like, how do I win this? Or how do I control this interaction? Like I had a client last week say to me like, yeah, but then she'll win. And she was talking about her daughter. And I was like, but we're not into winning.
Well, what does that indicate? It indicates threat.
Right.
Yeah.
But then she'll win. Like,
Fight or flight.
Right. And so here we're talking about an 18-year-old and her mom. And it's like the 18-year-old is wanting to do some of her own things, right? But mom wants to not have that happen. So instead of just
At all?
Pretty much,
Yeah.
instead of just being healthy and being into, oh, she's 18, and although she's not like the most mature 18-year-old, right? But she has to be able to go out in her own space and let her do her thing. And even if that, the expectation of the mother is that, well, family time is designated and therefore she must participate. It's like, you can't force that on someone every single night, which is what happened. Like we have dinner from 5 to 6, and then you can't like have the fun. Like she's 18, she's going to college. You can't do this. Right. Yeah. So as an example, it's when I said, you just have to let her do some of these things and let her be. And that was when the mom said, oh, but then she wins. That is not going to get you
as opposed to, and then she wins. Yay.
Yeah, not a yay. That's
another way to put that is then she wins.
Yeah, that's not what mom's saying here, yeah. Right? So, so it's an unhealthy pattern of thought. So the narrative in the mom's head already is setting up for an unhealthy communication pattern and communication dynamic between her and her child,
generating a threat when none exists.
Right, and but in her mind, there is a threat that she's losing her daughter. Her daughter's going away to college. She doesn't have control. There's all these things. Yeah. There's also an assumption with this particular mom, which happens in some types of personalities, which is if the daughter doesn't do what I want, it means she doesn't love me. So she has this equation of like, if that doesn't happen, then this exists. And so that's, again, unhealthy, right? So what I asked the mom is, I said, what is actually happening here? So this is real time, going back to 2 weeks ago, of using the example of what is actually happening here. I asked her to pause, right? And before responding or before reacting, really take a long pause. Now, long could be 10 seconds, because 10 seconds can feel like hours to think about something because reactions come in milliseconds or even micromilliseconds. Instead of it just being like, pause and think about what's really happening here. What is it that you're really trying to get from her? Or what is it that you need? All these different questions, she wanted, and it was very hard, but it got her to the point where she was like, well, she said, I want control. I want her to do what I want. And I'm like, yeah, but that's not how this works. She's not a 7-year-old where you can, she's like, yeah, but I want to unload the dishwasher. I'm like, well, if you say, could you please unload the dishwasher? And she says, I'll do it in 5 minutes. And she doesn't do it in 5 minutes. Then you can say, hey, you said you were going to do it in 5 minutes. But we had to role play the whole thing. And we've done this many times. And you have to do this with people because their default is so much in, but I want what I want right now. And if you don't do it, it means you don't respect me. If you don't do it, it means you don't love me. If you don't do it, it means like all these things. And it doesn't mean any of that. So it's about taking what is actually happening here and taking the pause. And before you respond, actually thinking about it. I told her, I asked her, what would it be like if you actually didn't have any reaction or response to her saying, I'm not going to do X, or I'm not going to do Y, or I don't want to attend that, or I don't want to do that. And you could just see it in her face. Like it was such a destroying moment for her interpersonally, internally, in the world. Like it was almost like it was crushing to her that was the way it was, because her identity is so caught up in the relationship. So I use that as an example, but you could use that with any relationship, any family, any relationship in romantic relationship, not so much in work relationships in the same way, but it does have some of that flair sometimes, right? Because of the disappointment and rejection.
So there's two things that freak out humans.
Oh, two things?
I'm going to say 1 and 1B, actually. 1 is the unknown, and lack of control is 1B, because that produces unknown.
Right.
Because if you don't have control, you don't know what's going to happen.
Exactly.
And people freak out about that.
Exactly. And if you can get to a place where you can sort of go with the flow, I cringe when I say that, because it's like it's not really go with the flow, but it's more about being realistic with the situation of like, I can't control this person and they can't control me.
Yeah.
And therefore they're going to do what they're going to do. And I'm going to, and hopefully we can have a partnership here. Great. But yeah, that's not what happens. So the plight of humanity, so when you,
Plus the parenting thing, the first thing I learned in parenting, and the one lesson I tell everybody, don't mourn phases.
yes.
Because what happens is you mourn a phase, and then what happens is you find out the next phase has something awesome in it.
Right, exactly.
So at the point where you quote unquote lose control over your teenager and they become more independent.
Right.
Yeah, I mean that's tough, but wait till you see what happens.
Right. But, well, and here's the thing I tell parents all the time, and this translates to adult relationships too, like in terms of like when people, it's like you want growth and flourish.
Mm-hmm.
You want them to fly. You want to fly with your partner. You want to go. You don't want to be stuck in this quandary, let's say, of just looping into over and over again of like, okay, we have to stay in this little box. We have to be okay because this is what keeps us safe.
And you don't want them dependent on you.
You don't, but
you do. You think you do, but you don't.
Here's the thing: is that people, some people think they do, and some people want it.
Yeah. Because
that's what keeps them comfortable. Because it keeps them feeling like they have no ability to lose anything. They're never going to get disappointed. Potentially, like there's no bear in the back of the cave if they have control.
Yep.
But the thing is that we don't want that because that turns into codependence. What is that? And I call that addiction to relationships. Yeah. You're addicted to the relationship and needing someone to need you and be, this is what I teach. And this is my coined phrase is I need you to need me to need you.
Yeah.
Right. So codependency. I need you to need me to need you. And if you don't, my whole world falls apart because my identity is so wrapped up in that. And then what do people do? They communicate very poorly and inarticulately, as I was almost doing, about how to get what they need. So that's like the next step is, when you ask yourself something like, what is actually happening here? Then you have to say, what else could this mean? Well, that means in this case, she needs independence. She wants independence. You don't want her to have that, right? Or someone wants you to do something. I see this in relationships all the time. Someone wants you to stay home one night and not go out with the girls or not go out with the guys or whatever. But instead, what do? They do a passive aggressive kind of communication style. Like, that's okay. Go ahead. I don't care. It's not going to be a big deal. Blah, blah, blah. Right. But you can read through all of that. What is that really? So you ask, what is really going on here? What do you really need? Now, it's super unhealthy when I've seen the pattern go in when I teach this, then all of a sudden it's, well, Dr. Kim says, I can ask for what I need and you have to do it. That's not what I said. It's just because because people get into controlling that too. It's like, well, if I say I don't want you to go out and it's every single time, then now we're lacking interdependence. We're doing codependency again. It's about saying like, what I really need is for you to communicate about the fact that, if I'm going to go out once a week, or we're both going to go out at different times once a week, and that's the expectation. If we're setting what the parameters are, then it makes the communication so much easier and healthier, because then we're not passive aggressive, then we're not resentful, then we're not angry, then we're not disappointed. And life is about disappointments at times. So therefore we're going to have those, and being able to say, oh, well, that does disappoint me because I really wanted to do this, but I get it. So you're at least not being. You
can be disappointed without it being a personal threat,
right?
Which is where people lose it.
And they do.
They think it's personal. By the way, you brought up bear in the back of the cave.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to note that. I swallowed it. I said unknown.
Yes. Yes. Bear in the back of the cave. Bear in the back. Yep. Exactly.
It was you this time.
Yes. Exactly. But that's what it is.
Yeah, it's what it is.
It's totally the whole, like, what we can't see, what we can't feel, what we don't know what's coming, but we think it's there, but we don't know. But it's in our anticipation zone because we've either experienced it, or we've been told we're going to experience it, or we've had some semblance of both. Here comes a sneeze. This room kills me.
And this is where I don't know how you phrase it, but this is the point where when you're dealing with the unknown of the bear in the back of the cave, that's your brain talking to you, because that's what the brain is designed to do. That's how you got here, because the brain threat generates.
And the brain threat generates because we've been trained into always being into that space of essentially controlling for what we can't control for.
But too many people swim in that brain part of it when there's another level of reason.
Right, exactly, because they don't know.
I call it the observer position. I don't know how you.
Yeah, well, it's observer position, self-observing ego. It's being able to step outside yourself, which is very hard for a lot of people to be able to look sort of like you're hovering above yourself, not in like a psychic way, but just hovering above the situation, being able to say, let's look at the bigger picture here and what's going on.
Oh, I always equate it to walking the dog.
Yep.
The dog is your brain, and the dog is barking at everything and taking everything as a threat, but you're above it and you're reasoned.
Exactly.
You can't just react to how the dog reacts. You got to have a level of reason.
Exactly. And that's such a good example when you think about it. And if people who don't understand what a dog does, I mean, dogs bark at everything. They bark at, and it's not nothing, but it's something. And they don't know, like Rocky here, my little friend here, he'll go out and stand in the yard and I can't see what he can see or hear or smell, but he'll start barking.
But you go leave it and you try to calm him down and you approach it with reason. You don't take it as a life threat like Rocky does.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. However, when my cat's alert in the house to something, I do alert to that because they have a higher sense of knowing and they're usually right. There's usually something going on around the house. Dogs tend to just bark at everything.
They do.
But that's the brain. That's the whole good example is that your brain is like a dog that barks constantly over nothing. It's just
because that's how it keeps you alive.
Right. And it's just not necessary. Yeah. Right. So when he barks, I'm constantly going, stop it. Stop it.
Well, it's good with your brain too.
Stop barking. Right.
Stop it. Yeah.
Stop it.
Is this reasonable, rational,
or realistic? Yeah. Exactly. You can't say that to Rocky. He just looks at me and keeps barking. But nonetheless, so that's also okay. So in this recap, it's separating facts from fiction, right? It's separating facts from your interpretation. If you interpret something one way, but that's not the facts, are you really looking at something with my 3 R's, right? Is it realistic? Is it rational? Is it reasonable to respond in this way? Do I have to react? Probably not, because I'm being emotional. Can I be responsive? It's so important. It's so hard to do this because people are so trained into not doing this. So, and to your point is stop treating feeling uncomfortable is dangerous.
Yeah.
People feel uncomfortable and discomfort, and then they feel that's danger because it's so painful. It's so hard. But comfortability is okay. But being uncomfortable is where change happens, where growth can happen, where mindsets change because you are able to look at it. And if you don't run away from it and you don't dismiss it and avoid it, right, then it becomes this thing where you're like, oh, I actually can take control of the situation better because I'm not running from the danger that I'm perceiving and interpreting. And it may not even be that. I'm facing it and going, okay, what do I do now?
Instead of reacting to it as a threat, you respond to it as an opportunity.
Exactly. Yeah. Perfect. That was so well said. Thank you, Lou.
Fighting this battle for 30 years.
Yes, I know. So growth in relationships often begins when you stop reacting instantly. So that instant gratification you get, because you do get a dopamine rush when you react emotionally to the emotion, instead of you actually get more of a dopamine, serotonin, all the neurotransmitters, GABA, your anxiety, right? All of them. You get a settling of those when you actually do not respond by reacting instantly.
Right.
You just get a settled, because it goes into your vagal nerve and it regulates your whole system and into your brain and into your stomach, and it talks to each other, mind-body connection, and then it actually regulates you. So super important, which makes it easier to communicate with your friends, your partners, your whatever, right? So, okay, recapping that, learn one skill of communication at a time. We talked about active listening, which is the most important, right? Not listening to speak, but listening to hear. A couple of people brought that up from a couple of weeks ago when I talked about it. Like, oh God, I don't listen to actually hear. I listen to speak. They even have caught themselves like in sessions with me. Friends of mine also that I talk to about this will say, I'm not listening to actually hear you. I didn't hear anything you said.
Because you're reacting instead of responding.
People are just in that mode of I call it the B actor, right? You're not being Meryl Streep, you're being whoever's not,
right?
Right? You're being a person who's just waiting to just say what they have to say, and they don't really have necessarily, I don't want to say they don't have respect, but a lot of times they don't have respect for what you're saying because they're too busy thinking about themselves, because people are very self-absorbed.
Yep.
So they're just waiting to just say, but this, but like, did you hear what I said?
Yeah.
And I often will see people have those patterns of like, I literally just said that. I literally just said that.
Yep.
I literally just said that. And people are like, I didn't hear that. Well, because you're not listening, right?
Mhm.
And that's why I think when parents will say to their kids, I saw someone in the grocery store. It's always in the grocery store that I see these things. It's either I'm in the grocery store too much or it's happening too much in the grocery store. But I saw a parent manhandle, lightly pull at their child's arm the other day.
Yeah.
Whatever you want to call it. I'm being nice. And they were like, see, this is what she goes, see, you fell because you didn't listen.
Yeah.
And I'm like, in my head, I'm going, oh, the flaws and everything you just said, beside the fact that you grabbed your child in the middle of the public domain. But, and I understood. There wasn't a DCF call that needed to be done. But it wasn't
that incident. It was a culmination.
It was a culmination.
Several incidents.
But it's the moment of, I had that, that psychological aha moment of, oh God, parents do this all the time. And she wasn't doing it to be mean. She wasn't being like, her tone wasn't mean. She was literally, you could see her frustration. You could see whatever, but she said, see, you fell because you didn't listen. And I was like, now I waited for the teaching moment that she was going to have. That was, I was going to, that was such a growth opportunity for her to have for this child, of saying, get down to the level. And this is not about gentle parenting, because gentle parenting turns into a lot of things, but this is about like just going down to this child was maybe 4, right? Yeah. And just going down eye to eye and just saying, hey, Lou, right? You fell because mommy told you that you were standing on top of the cart 4 times, and you fell because you didn't listen to me to sit down. And when you don't sit down in the cart's going to flip and you're going to fall, and then you're going to cry, and then I can't help you. That's too much effort. It was, and that would have been a great teaching moment, so that at least you're communicating instead of just being like, because you didn't listen doesn't mean you fell. But the connection now to the child is, you didn't hear me and therefore you fell.
So the question there is, what was the most important thing? That he didn't listen to you, or that he fell?
2 separate issues.
Yeah.
Totally separate issues.
But not in that moment to her. The most important thing was he didn't listen to her.
Right. And therefore she reacted to him. Yeah. And instead of saying, oh my gosh, you fell, or you pick one.
Yeah.
You didn't listen to me. Don't connect them together, because they're not connected. Because you didn't listen, it has nothing to do with falling. He was going to fall anyways. I was watching this kid. This was a fall in the making. It was coming, right? But it was more that I would have picked, if I were her, I would have picked make sure he didn't hurt himself first. Yeah. Like, oh my God, did you hurt yourself? And then had the moment after and said, you've got to sit and it wouldn't have been about listening. It would have been, you have to sit down or else you're going to fall. Not listen equals fall.
Because let's think about the effectiveness of this. What's going on in the 4-year-old's head? He just fell.
Right.
He's not
listening. He's not listening to what.
Not going to have a reasoned response to what you're telling him.
Exactly.
Give him a chance to collect himself, and then try to make the effort.
And you could see too the training that went into him in that moment of what was happening. I could see it imprint on him quickly, because his reaction to her agitation, anger, all the things, was fear. Instead of it being like empathy because he fell, it was anger at him for being bad.
Yeah.
Shame, embarrassment, humiliation. She was loud, which, that's one way of doing it, but it sets up, people don't realize that here he is 4, it sets him up already for reacting and anticipating to that cringe response of, if I do something that is, he fell, so it wasn't even something bad, but if he does something by not listening, then he's in trouble.
Or if anybody comes at him with that kind of attitude, he's going to shut down.
He's going to shut down.
Yeah.
And you could see him, he had that response before, and he was definitely, he went flat and lost his emotional response to it, which also trains boys, unfortunately, into losing their masculine attention to their emotional side, because he got shut down really quickly for getting in trouble for falling because he didn't listen, which is such a cockeyed message.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, but that's where it set it up. I mean, this child, I would love to see him in 20 years to see how he responds in relationships with people, particularly women, because I imagine that that's a constant.
All he wanted to do was get to that moment.
Yeah. Well, and he wanted something on a shelf. And he wasn't.
No, I mean, after he fell, at the point where his mother's going at him, all he wants to do is go through that moment. There's nothing constructive going on there.
No, exactly. And what she needed
just turtle, basically.
Right, exactly. Yeah. He totally turtled.
Yeah.
And for people that don't know what that is, turtling is like, if you ever see a turtle, when they get afraid, they go in, their heads go in, their arms go in, everything goes in. I saved a turtle this week, by the way.
Oh, nice.
Yes, I put him in the backyard and put him right into the water. It was a her.
Okay.
Whatever. I just know that. The reason why I know that is because there were no colors. So I just had to point that out. Thank you very much. Oh, whatever, Lou. Okay. Active listening.
I was listening.
It just made me think of the turtle. I
didn't have a response.
Oh, God. Anyway, so from active listening, having clear expression. So to my example, even in relationships. So let's bring it up into like adult world, because I know a lot of adults listen. So having clear expression, right? So remember I said, like, you can't say things like, you never care, you don't love me, right? All or nothing kind of things. It's more about like, I feel dismissed, I feel avoided, I feel hurt, I think blah, 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 right? I need, right? You say those things and you actually fill in with exactly what you're saying. I feel, I think, I need. Not, you don't do, I feel that you, I love that one. It's always, I feel that you don't care. No, that's still saying the same thing. Yeah. I feel that you don't love me right now. No, still the same thing. It's, I feel hurt. I feel disappointed. I feel sad when that happens. That's a different message of clear expression.
Yeah.
Right. So being able to say that, and then that leads to emotional regulation. I think that's where we sort of got to last time, as we were talking at the end about emotional regulation, that good communication will collapse when emotions take over, right? So when you're activated in an unhealthy way, you're going to be like rapid breathing, your voice is going to be loud, you're going to be, just physically reactive internally, you're going to be potentially reactive outside, you're going to be going for the win, you're going to do all the things that has nothing to do with regulating self. And regulation in and of itself is a skill. So being able to emotionally regulate, such important piece of life. And through active listening, you can, if you actually actively listen and pick up on the actual things that are usually being said, your reaction will go way down, because you're usually not in interpretive mode. You're not in perceptual, like, distortion mode. You're actually listening and not missing pieces. What people very commonly do in hearing things is they'll cherry pick what they think they're hearing, what they think a person might mean, is meaning, all the things assumptively, and then they get emotionally dysregulated because immediately they fall apart around that whole situation. So this is about really pausing, slowing your breathing down, right? Just being, it takes a couple seconds just by thinking clearer, right? Clear communication, lowering your voice. It's kind of like when someone gets really loud, go lower.
Yeah.
Don't respond at the same height, right? The screaming battles.
Yeah.
Screaming battles don't ever get anyone anywhere. Someone will say, well, he who screams loudest wins. No. Delay responding if you have to. I tell people sometimes, don't respond at all. If you can't respond and you feel like you're going to react, just shut up. Just don't speak until you can do it. And if you have to say, I can't respond right now, I have to take a break from that, then you do that. But a break can't be for days, right? Because then you become an avoidant, dismissive.
You're just putting it off,
And that's what happens in attachment, right? Avoidant, dismissive people who are raised with very little nurturing and very little resolve in their emotional life as children will come into relationships as adults, and they'll dismiss you and avoid those situations by just being, they're the ones that will say, I'm sorry. And if you don't take my sorry, it's not good enough, then I'm not talking to you.
Define further the phrase you just used, resolve. As children resolve their, I'm sorry, I lost the phrase too. Resolve their emotions?
If people don't resolve, when you're a child, if you don't resolve out attachment, I'm now going to go back. This happens to me in class all the time. People say, repeat exactly what you said. I'm like, oh, okay. But if you,
I wanted to be sure I understood what you said.
So it's about going, if you don't resolve in childhood out the ability to emotionally regulate, essentially, right?
Learn the skill.
If you don't learn that skill, then by the time you get into your teenage years and on, you're going to be a person who emotionally dysregulates a lot of the time, which will lead to dismissing and avoiding, because you're not getting emotionally nurtured. So if you don't get emotionally nurtured in childhood in the way that you need, right? That seeing, soothing, then if you don't get that done, then by the time you're in those later years, you will end up being, good morning, Leanne, you will end up having unresolved issues, and you will treat people like you were treated in terms of reactionary, which will be, I will dismiss you and I will avoid you. I will avoid a situation that I know could potentially lead to high risk, high danger, and it's emotional danger in relationships. It's the, I'll tell you what you need to hear to shut you up, and then I'm going to walk away, right? But then I'm going to repeat the same thing that happened again and again, because I never resolved out back in the day what I was going through to have that happen to me then. So now I'm just repeating. So we call it family of origin issues. We call it recapitulation of the family of origin issues. So if back in the day, you weren't, you're treated by being dismissed and avoided in terms of your feelings. Like little Lou falls on the ground and he cries, and mom or dad says, I told you and you didn't listen, and dismisses, and then is whatever, which is what happened. That teaches that child to become an adult in relationships that dismisses emotional stuff. Empathy goes out the door.
They didn't pay any attention to his side of the incident. It all focused on their side of the incident. And you didn't listen.
So you become a person who has a really hard time being emotionally attached to another person at the deeper levels, because you're superficial. You end up being very superfluous and superficial in your relational style. And it becomes, because it's easier, air quoting, it's easier to dismiss and avoid someone or something, a topic, a thing that's hard, the uncomfortability, right? They run from that because why? In the past, it's been ignored, or it's been challenged, or it's been beaten on.
Dismissed.
Right. So in some way or another, and dismissed doesn't always mean like pushed off. It means attacked, right? It can be attacked. So, being able to emotionally regulate around that is so important, because so many people really struggle with that whole sort of overarching bridge from childhood into adulthood, and don't even realize. And this stands out to me when people say things like, "I'm sorry if I had known that was good." Like, what? No, I'm sorry, but if any sentences go like that, it's like, that's not. That means the person's emotionally dysregulated and is about to check out on you in terms of being able. It's like, I'm sorry because I'm sorry, period. And what do I need to do to make that feel better for you? Not I'm sorry and now get defensive and be upset, or whatever it is, right? So emotional regulation comes around that. Okay, so now moving on to the next piece of this, yay, which people have been sort of waiting for, is upgrading I call it upgrading your internal dialogue. We all have these narratives in our head. Narratives often that we have in our head just play out, just outward in the world without us even realizing it, because we walk around sort of aimlessly, not thinking, and we just kind of react and do our thing, right? And people will often communicate externally the same way that they speak to themselves internally. Kind of like when I tell my students, don't write your paper like you speak in person. I'm like, don't write it like that. It's the same thing, is because we're so caught up in how we internally speak that externally it just comes out the same way. And it's like, ooh, there's no filter on that. So if your inner voice is harsh, right, demeaning to yourself, or demeaning in general, defensive, fearful, combative, that's always a good one. The combative, like self-talk, right? Perfectionistic kind of overarches all of those things. those things will tend to leak in conversations. And one of the ways that it leaks a lot of times is when people, this is such a common example that I hear in communication styles and couples especially, and in parenting too, is people will say things like, they'll say something really not nice, hurtful, demeaning, something like that. And then the person will say, that hurt me. And they'll go, I'm just kidding. That bridge over is the defense of, oh, I know what I did. I know what I said. I know what, it's like, oh, that's, just, you weren't kidding. There's a difference. But people use that as a way to jump out to emotionally regulate themselves by being like, oh God, I'm going to get nailed for this emotionally. But if I just say I was kidding, or I was just having fun and I was trying to lighten the mood, you don't lighten the mood by using sarcasm. You don't use that, or you don't use passive aggression. You don't do that. But people think, but that's what they were taught. So that's how they function in the world. So therefore, that's what you get for being in communication with them. It's
avoidance of reaction.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So when that kind of stuff is leaking out, and if you're that person, which so many people are, you have to really start practicing self-correction. You have to have an internal, Robin says, yep. You have to have an internal corrector that catches yourself without attacking yourself. So you're on self-attack a lot of times.
Oh, yeah.
And so you have to be able to self-correct before it comes out of your mouth. So I call it, as you know, your head bubble or your peace bubble. You've got to keep your peace bubble, which means that you've got to be in self-correction mode in your head before you speak, before you act, before you go out. Unlike what I did 2 weeks ago when I screamed at John for letting the cats out. Remember that?
It's okay. What you think is okay, but you can edit it too.
Yes, exactly.
In terms of expression.
Exactly. So, an internal.
So many people are just so direct. It's head to speech.
Well, yes. And the thing is, there's nothing wrong with being direct or there's nothing wrong with being direct, but it's about delivery and the words and
approach. Right. Effective approach.
Right. It's about how you're communicating it and the words you're using.
If you're really trying to get a point across, put it in a way that it will be effective with the person.
If you're going to insult someone, you're going to hurt someone's feelings. If you're going to just shame them, you're going to blame them, you're going to do all this, I know people that I grew up around that would say things to me like I'm not yelling, so that means it's okay. There's one thing. Or, yes, it is so hard to think before speaking. That's why it's so important to slow yourself down and pause. Or things like, and I have a couple parents in my practice right now that I'm trying to help with this, that they say things like, I just lost it. It will come back to me. Yeah. I had it, but I get distracted. But going back to self-correcting and being able to really look at oneself before they come out of the head bubble and not, I tell people, imagine a bubble, like wicked, here I am, Glinda bubble, right? Put a Glinda bubble, a nice little bubble. We travel, come and go by bubble. Put it around your body, imagine it around your body. And before you react and pop the bubble, the whole thing is don't pop the bubble. Make the bubble stay there. The bubble is not there to keep you away from people. It's there to protect you from ruining your environment and the moment and other people's things in terms of their way of being in the world, and people say some really awful things and they couch it under, this is the thing. I'm telling you the truth. So therefore it's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, you can tell the truth, but I'm not going to walk up to someone and say, gee, you're fat. My clients that are overweight or they need help with nutrition, I don't look at them and say that, right? Because one, why would I do that? But second of all, I say things like, we have to really work on your nutrition. We have to work on your exercise. It's implying. And sometimes I have to be more direct and I say, we have to lose weight because that's why your joints are hurting. But I don't say you are just so overweight and fat that we can't, what do you even think? But people will do that being like, yeah, but it's honest.
That accomplishes.
No, that is nothing going to help you. You're just shaming someone and you're making the person who probably already is in their head internally having a shame conversation with themselves about whatever issue. you're not making them curious about how to change. You're making them more shamed to not change.
Crafting your response has two benefits. It keeps your peace bubble, keeps the interaction in range.
Yes.
As opposed to spinning out of control.
And it gives
and also it's more acceptable for the person you're trying to talk to.
Well, it helps people rise together, right?
Yeah.
It's about, this process that we're going through this year on Rise. It's rising together. How do you get people to rise with you? You have to bring them on the journey with you. And so, there's been times where I've had conversations with people in my life, not in client, but like in personal life, where I've had to say things that are direct, but they're couched nicely, but they're so I have a particular individual that a couple years ago was overweight in my life, and we would have conversations just like I just said now, that like totally normal, like healthy, whatever. And immediately her response would always be like, "You're saying I'm fat." And I'd say, I did not ever say that. If you feel that, then that's one thing, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you got it, like, because we would talk about nutrition all the time. So, but to my point of the whole day, the whole show today is like, right from the outset, it was already in that mode of she was interpreting, she was going right to the self-negative talk she already had. She was, it was already in the gate. So no matter what I said, it was, if she could not take accountability, which is part of this whole thing about what I'm talking about here, right? Her internal dialogue was not taking accountability. It was like, as soon as I said something like, you really shouldn't eat that because we're about to have this. Or if I said, like, you've already had that, and this is a younger person at the time, and I was giving her choices, she would immediately go into, you're criticizing me, you're judging me. I'm like, no, I'm actually just giving you choices. And now she's like in a totally different space. She's like, I'm so glad we talked about that. I'm so sorry, but the interpretation and her discomfort and her, all the things I've talked about got in the way of actually hearing what I was actually saying. And I wasn't being direct mean. I was being direct, healthy, communicating, like, let's make a different choice. Let's do this. Let's go for a walk first. Right. And no matter what, if I say, let's go for a walk down the beach, why am I fat? And it was, but obviously the self inner dialogue was already there that, you think that
the younger generations have been bred on victimization.
Right.
So they go to that instantly.
Right.
Take a walk on the beach. She's saying I'm fat.
Right.
No, let's go for a walk on the beach.
Exactly. And it was like, no. So it's the self accountability.
Well, that's that with victimization that relieves you of self accountability.
Exactly. When you can put it out externally on someone else.
It's someone else is doing this to me. It's not me.
Right. I didn't do this. So therefore I don't have to take accountability. So I can keep eating. I can keep drinking. I can keep drugging. I can keep whatever it is. Right.
And that's easy.
It's so, it's like, well, it's not my fault.
Right.
Right. It's not my fault.
I have no control over this.
Right. Which goes back to childhood, is like, you fell because you didn't listen.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Right. Now it's not my fault. Right. Yeah. So it's a trained in thing. John's here to say hello to Leanne. So I was talking about accountability, right? Yep. So accountability without humiliation, taking self accountability and that's keeping that Glinda bubble, right? Keep the peace bubble and say, okay, let me be self-reflective here before I have something to say or how I react or whatever. So instead of saying, I'm terrible at relationships, or I'm terrible at food choices, or I'm terrible at whatever, it's replacing it in your head bubble with, I'm learning healthier choices. I'm learning healthier patterns. I'm learning a way of being in this relationship in a different way. Because you're replacing the negative self-talk and you're doing something that's about internally changing the dialogue so it doesn't come out externally. It's
not a failure of decision-making. Right. It's an opportunity to learn how.
Right. And what that creates is psychological flexibility. It actually allows a person to actually have I call it the toggle switch between I'm okay and I'm not okay. I'm okay, I'm not okay. And it makes a big difference. So, and it also makes a person less avoidant and dismissive of situations because they're able to be flexible in the conversation or in their own head. Instead of being so defensive, they're much more able to just be present, which is really hard, right? Which leads to building relational maturity, right? Because people, their relationship to self sometimes, many times, and I teach a whole class in the spring on interpersonal relationships, right? And dynamics. Self-relationship, right? One self to self is often very immature because we're not taught oftentimes most people are not taught how to have really healthy relationship with their own self.
Yep.
And then they're thrown into having to have a relationship with other people,
because a lot of the young talk is you should be ashamed
of yourself, right?
Yeah.
Right.
In one form or another.
Who do you think you are?
Yep.
How, like all the messages, right? But healthy relationships require a balancing that isn't any of that, right? So it's like honesty that's loving and kind. That's why I sort of said not the gentle parenting is a whole different thing. It's coming up a lot because people are sort of making a lot of TikToks about how like it backfires on people because it gets kids to,
yeah.
Right. But it's about honesty that has kindness and compassion to it. So it's about authoritative being in the world, which means that you are high in warmth and praise and love and kindness, but you also have an expectation and that your bar isn't so low that you get walked on.
Right.
So important, which leads to the fact that building relational maturity is you have good boundaries that you will not allow. I'll have people come in oftentimes and say to me, why does this happen to me? And I say, why do you allow it to happen to you? Difference, right?
Yep.
The balance comes from why do I allow it to keep happening to me? Where's your boundary?
Know your part and what your problem is.
Right. And your part can be that you just aren't setting the boundary and you're allowing it to happen. Having empathy. Many people walk around without empathy. They'll think they have empathy because if something, you fall, little Lou falls, and oh God, are you okay? And then that's it, right? Or you're fine, get up, you're fine. That's not empathy.
Yeah.
Empathy, that doesn't mean we cuddle, but empathy is more about like, oh God, I bet that hurt. You'll be okay. Let's go get, like the next thing, like whatever it is. So it's addressing it without dismissing it. It's like, what, instead of why are you crying?
Yeah.
You didn't listen. That's not empathy. That does not build relational maturity because it doesn't allow someone to grow into understanding. So in adult land, right? People in adult relationships have that same dynamic. Like, why are you crying? What's wrong? Why, like you're not picking up what's going on. Like you're missing it because you're not relationally mature to figure out that there's something going on or that you've said something or that something's happened and you're missing it.
I love this concept of a self relationship because at a certain point, many people talk about their upbringing all the time.
Right.
And it's like at a certain point, you self-parent.
Right.
You got to take over your own parenting.
Exactly.
So you need a good, healthy relationship with yourself.
Right.
To be able to do that.
Right. And
otherwise you're just lost in the past. You don't have to, if your parenting wasn't great, you don't have to live with that.
And that's the thing is that people, it's such an odd concept for so many people that I've seen. And even in my classes, right. And I'm not doing therapy with, when I talk about self-relationship and people just find that such an odd initial topic when they're like, what do you mean? You have to have a relationship with yourself in order to be able to do in the world. Like you want to be a counselor, you want to be a good partner, you want to be a good friend. You have to have a good relationship
Something
to yourself.
happens and you internally just say you suck.
Right.
That's not productive.
Well,
it's not going to get you anywhere.
Right. So you either say something,
I need to learn how to avoid that or do that better.
Exactly. You're either learning that or you're constantly seeking validation or you're people pleasing or you're controlling or you're emotionally avoiding things. All those things are not what you want to do to be emotionally regulated because that's not going to help you. A mature communicator, here it comes, right? Because people are hanging on this, I'm sure. A mature communicator can disagree calmly. It's very hard, but it can happen, right? Doesn't mean it has to be perfect, but a good communicator can do it calmly. They can hear feedback without collapsing in and emotionally being annihilated. So feedback doesn't turn into, I should get defensive and now turn it on you.
Yep.
It's just feedback, right? Not defense, right? You wake up in the morning, get a cup of coffee, the coffee mug is dirty. You say to your husband, hey, this mug is dirty. And the response can either be, oh God, I didn't notice that. Or it can be, oh, well, what do you want me to do about it? It wasn't me. I didn't. Okay. I just said the coffee cup was dirty.
Yeah.
The end, so it's a matter of like, can you hear feedback without falling in on yourself? And it's just feedback. It's not a shotgun at your head kind of thing. Apologizing clearly. I am sorry that I hurt you. Not I'm sorry, but if you hadn't have done this, right? I'm sorry and it hurt you and I'm going to make sure I don't do that again. That's a good, clear message. Not, I'm sorry, and then I have a justification, a reason, an excuse of why you did the thing you did, and then you're still sorry, because that's not an apology, right? So that's not relational maturity. Saying no or yes respectfully. No is a whole sentence with a period at the end, sometimes an exclamation point, not a question mark. No. And then being able to tolerate misunderstandings temporarily and not having them evolve into the next thing, because that goes to the emotional stuff that happens in childhood. When a person is raised in a household where emotional stuff does not get resolved out, this is what I think you were referring to too, is when I said, when emotional things, something happens and the child gets avoided or dismissed for their feelings, their thoughts, their reactions or whatever. And then it happens again and it happens again and happens again. Well, that child learns to be an adult that does that to other people.
Yep.
And so that there's no tolerance in that person for being able to sit in a misunderstanding. They have to immediately jump out, and they leave their partners, their friends, their family. They leave the other people spinning. And then when they come back, they're like, why are you still upset 5 minutes later? Because normal, healthy people still get hurt, and they don't just take a sorry and feel okay, especially when it continues to happen, which is what happens in a lot of these non-mature relational patterns, right? So being able to practice repair and not perfection. And a lot of people feel like they have to be perfect, so they don't do it. They don't try because they feel, if I can't be perfect, then why bother, right? Eeyore, right? They get into the Eeyore mode. So instead, it's like practice the repair. A strong repair sounds something like, I understand why that hurt, and then saying why it hurt, right? So you're really looking at the person being able to say, I understand why that hurt you, and this is why I understand it. Not having to say, I know it hurt you, and then if you have to say, well, why did it hurt you? Or why did it hurt me? The person should be able in maturity say like, well, because blah, 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 and then tell you. But oftentimes people will say, oh, I'm not going to play this game with you.
Yeah.
That's the avoidant dismissive, right? Yep. It's like, wait a second. You just said, I understand why it hurt. Then tell me why, so that I understand that you understand. Instead, the person that is not mature will go into this, I don't have to do that. I don't have to, oh, okay. Because why? They were raised that way. They were raised, that's what they were told. I don't have to tell you. I don't have to explore that with you. I don't have to do anything to repair. I just have to tell you because that's repair. That's not repair. That's dismissing you.
Your parental relationships are the model for all your relationships.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Another
good way, or bad.
Right. Another way of practicing repair is starting off sentences with like, I reacted defensively. Here's how I did that. You're explaining. That does not mean you're doing anything to expose yourself to get annihilated to the other person. It means you're explaining it so that the person knows that they get that you get them, right? Let me try again. Let me do it again. Let me have another opportunity to show you that it's different, right? And then that person has to do that. There's a lot of people that just say it and then they don't do it. And then I should have communicated that better. I should have communicated that earlier. I should communicate that in some different fashion, because repair builds trust with people when it's true repair. And when it's not, it will look more like someone trying to be perfect just to say the right thing to get past the moment. Right. And then that's the likelihood that increases the chances of it happening again. So you're not creating an environment that supports growth. You're then creating an environment that supports the same repeating pattern. So it's not going to go anywhere. And then you're having, if you're that person that's in that, you're having to do your own self repair. And that's hard if you have to sit in that all the time, because it's exhausting. Yeah. It's exhausting when you're in friendships like that or relationships like that, because you can't do that. So in creating an environment that supports growth, so you have to have that mindset change forward moment, right? Because it's hard if your environment rewards unhealthy patterns. So if you grew up in a household that was dismissive and avoidant of you, and you didn't count in a lot of ways, your feelings didn't count, you're going to probably do that to other people, and then the environment is not going to grow. Right. Now, other people around you will grow. So when you're in that, you have to spend more. So you have to spend more time. If you're with people that are avoidant, dismissive, not communicating healthy, all those things, you have to spend more time with people that communicate honestly. Find people around you. If you don't have them, in your household, find people that do that. People that respect your boundaries. people who regulate emotions so you're emulating what you're looking for. You're picking your tribe because your vibe is going that way. People who are encouraging growth and who want growth and who are happy for you and want to, see you succeed and are successful themselves. And people who you want to surround yourself with people that maturely handle conflict in a mature way, not people who like to be combative and harsh and or not even that, but just dismiss. Like, yeah, okay, right? Or they want to say mean things. There's been a flurry of conversations over the past couple of weeks about, people, I don't know why this has come up, but it has, like, the name calling, like, even just being like, you're so stupid, or you're right. Like, that's not going to help you. And handling that maturely. Don't be around unhealthy patterns like that, because that's not how you get anything resolved. And that's just creating more problems. So, in childhood, you absorb relational habits that become your adult relational habits, like you just said. And so if you don't have a good self-awareness of who you are around that and how you contribute to that, your relational problems will just continue, because you bring them into the other relationships. If you are with a partner,
again, know your part and what's going on, because you have a part that you can control.
Right. But people who are in that dismissive avoidant don't like to know their part. Because they don't know how to fix it, because they don't do the work to fix it, because they were never taught.
And it makes them responsible for it, which they're uncomfortable with.
And they were never taught to do that, because they never were given the repair from their parents or their whoever, it's usually the parents, right? They were never given that from them, so they're certainly not going to be able to do it for you. Because they have to work to do that. They have to work to know that they're doing it, and then they have to work to do it, and that's a lot of work. But if the person wants a relationship that's not going to combust, then that's what they do. So unfortunately, it's time to go. And of course, I didn't get to the last little part, which was basically giving like a daily practice of how to structure this and so on. But I'm certainly going to do that next week when we come back. I'll give a quick little thing and before we go on to the next rise moment. But that was a good wrap up to the teaching moment of all of those things.
Love this series.
I'm loving it too, because it feels good, and it's always in my mind of like how to do that. And we're talking about it in therapy, and we're talking about it in my classes, and talking about it with friends. So, but everybody have a really great week. Go out there and rise, rise, rise.